My goodness, I'm back. The journeys of being a creative entrepreneurial mama. Yeah, so most of the time that I get to create my magic and my offerings and share my message is when the children are meant to be sleeping. So anyway, I'm just going to reshare this in my groups so that I know that I'm broadcasting where I need to be sharing my magic. Bear with me a second. The Wi-Fi's a little bit slow this evening. So, right, and we're ready to go. Fun times, I tell you. Sometimes you just have to be completely flexible and in flow and have an element of humor about it because things don't go the way that you plan sometimes, yeah? Right, so I'm now live. Okay, so I just shared before with respects to my spiritual journey and really connecting with my soul compass and coming into true north. And I'll speak about that from a mythological kind of, excuse me, analogy type perspective. Now my voice is gone. This has been a funny evening. I'll just clear that out of the way. Okay. She's on. Nothing will stop me. So I shared with you a little bit of my journey. I was 18 and moved from my hometown and moved to Melbourne with $200, 2 suitcases, and I found myself sharing this house with two of my best friends at the time, and I was really fortunate enough that I had this beautiful earth angel in the disguise of one of my sister's friends, my older sister, and she had forewarned me in like moving to Melbourne, knowing that I was from Townsville, so this small town in North Queensland, going to the big smoke, and being in a city of over 3 million people is pretty huge when you've come from a small town. I think the population might have been like 170,000, so it's a bit of a big step. And so I was kind of forewarned beforehand that I'd have no money, that the pricing was a little bit different. Of course, real estate was a little bit more expensive, that the whole lifestyle, it took a little bit of adjusting and to get used to. And she also told me that I needed to kind of journey through my first winter in Melbourne, and that coming into that next season that I would begin to love it. And if I was able to stay for at least a year, that second year window, that I would really find my feet and I would begin to love it. And so I really took that advice on, and it was a really beautiful seed to plant, and that really stayed with me. So it got through to the first winter and I became really sick actually, because growing up in North Queensland, like our winter is like a I don't even know. I don't think you can really call it a winter. I mean, like you'd have like long sleeves and maybe like a jumper or something on the top, but it doesn't get ridiculously cold. Like an average winter day is around 25 degrees Celsius. It's just beautiful, right? But sometimes the temperatures will drop below 6 or 7 degrees. So it still gets pretty crisp, yeah? So I got really sick, which was an interesting experience, like being away from the support of family, having to work. So I was working. I did tell myself that I wasn't going to be going back into the butcher shop work, but I got a little bit desperate for cash, and so that's where I ended up, because I knew that I could pick up a job really easy, and I ended up getting a job at the Queen Victoria Market. So I used to have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was daylight savings, so it's pitch black outside, really cold, and I'd tram it to work and do that journey for the cash that I needed to get by. So anyway, the first 6 months were pretty rough, and in that I smoked a lot of pot to kind of get me through. I became quite depressed, and I didn't realize the sad, like the seasonal depression that you can get. And with Melbourne, it's got that energy that it becomes quite grey and it's rainy and freaking cold and when you're used to the sunshine, and it was a lot to take in. And so the two girls that I had travelled down with decided to leave, and that was a pivotal moment on my journey. So I'm 18, I am in a city with over 3 million people. My two best friends that I have moved there have decided to leave. Only part of their journey is they didn't tell me until they'd already made a decision. So I kind of wasn't factored into that. So that really brought about a lot of, I guess, rejection and abandonment feelings and a lot of stuff. Yeah, that I was like, oh, well, how come I didn't get invited? And kind of played into these stories. And then it really stirred up the rebel and the kind of fuck you energy, and I was just like, no, I'm going to stay. And part of it was a little bit out of spite, and the other part was like, no, I'm going to do this. So it was such a defining moment in my life as a young woman that then I had to find somewhere to live on my own. I didn't know anybody. The only person that I knew was another girl that worked at the markets, and that was about it. That was my social circle. And so I wasn't in any real position to get a share house that was, you know, in a kind of funky area or anything. So I was very fortunate enough to find a really beautiful place in Elwood, and I moved in with this guy. And I remember when I went into the classifieds in the paper to find this place to live, and you know, it sounded all good, and I rocked up, and I remember I was like a little bit scared because I'm like, oh, like I don't know what to expect here. I've never really gone house hunting in that respect, or you know, don't really know this person. I'm a potential roommate. So I remember seeing a skateboard at the front, and I was like, sweet, because I was a skater. And then I remember smelling incense, and I'm like, all right, this dude's probably a pot smoker disguising his habit with incense. But in any essence, I felt quite safe. It felt familiar for me where I was at on my journey at the time. So anyway, I ended up moving in there, and that was really beautiful. It was a beautiful, clean space, but it was also challenging because the rent that I had to meet. And I was working in the Queen Victoria markets and then in Dingley, so it was a fair bit of a travel. So within the space of that time, what it really showed me is that, you know, I was kind of capable at getting on with life and doing what I needed to do to live and to survive and to be independent and look after myself. But where the magic really happened is after my two best friends had moved. Now, bear in mind that I'd pretty much come out of high school. I graduated high school. I was 16 because I'm born at the end of the year, so just graduated, and then my 17th birthday I went straight into a year of university before I decided to drop out of that, and then I moved to Melbourne. So my whole life with respects to formulating my identity was in the institution of school, so it's in around that peers, being around my friends, and then going into tertiary education and still kind of carrying through particular friendships from school as well and creating new ones, but there was similarities with them that were comfortable. Yeah, so I was a particular type of person that I used to gravitate towards. But then when I lived on my own, all of a sudden I didn't have these influences around me, and that was a huge unnerving wake-up call for me, particularly because I was quite young and innocent and incredibly naive and trusting as well. But it was a really, really beautiful experience, an opportunity to sit with myself and begin to really ask myself some key and pertinent questions to figure out who I was beyond the influence of other people. Now, here's the thing. When we spend a lot of time around people, we tend to adapt the same language, we mimic body language, and sometimes we can get so swept away with group think that we become a product of the group, and we can lose our sense of self in that. Yeah. Now that can serve a beautiful function to create community, but there can become a point where you find yourself so out of alignment with what you actually enjoy or what you actually like that you go into what we would call peer pressure and do things because the group is doing it. Now, when you're young and impressionable, it can be quite a challenge to say no to things, to stand solid in yourself as a person with your convictions and standing with integrity of what you choose, to be able to say no, or, you know, to be able to choose really consciously. And so this provided me with the opportunity to sit and to listen deeply to myself, to what I really wanted, what I wanted to experience, what actually gave me joy, what actually inspired me, and what I found was beautiful. So I remember the first time I took myself to the movies, on my own. And I would never have done that in my hometown because I always had friends around. And so what I found is that there were particular types of movies that I might have wanted to see, but I never really got to see because the group didn't want to do it. And so I would sacrifice my own desires and needs because it didn't fit within the mold of the group narrative. So when I lived on my own, I took myself to these movies. I was like, I want to go and see that. And I took myself on a date and I loved it. I began to really enjoy and love my company. And I began loving to really seek and explore what inspired me. I took myself to art galleries. I allowed myself to go on crazy wild journeys. I used to book a train ticket for the day, and literally, like when I had my days off, I would jump on a train and just go. I would have my music, I'd be listening to Bob Marley, just kind of cruising and absorbing all of the different surroundings, the different scenery, the changing from suburbs to the greater outer regions of Victoria as well, just to allow myself to experience that sense of freedom and to experience the new. And that was incredibly enriching to my soul. And then I realized that I was the type of person that there's a soul need of mine to seek the new, to have new experiences, to connect with different people from around the world, cultures, to learn, to experience different ways of living, and ultimately to gather stories. I love storytelling. I love connecting with people and listening to their stories, So then kind of fast forward a little bit. So it's just before my 19th birthday, and I remember calling in my tribe. I felt so alone in this big city, but I didn't feel lonely because I found myself, And when I really connected with myself and what I actually love to do, that's when I opened up for these opportunities to really call in some beautiful and inspiring friendships, which then sparked me on my spiritual awakening per se. And that awakening took place just before my 19th birthday, and it was literally a solid condensed 1 month period. And it was like the whole veil had been lifted, the rose-colored glasses. It was kind of all around the Matrix theme, and I began to see the world in a different way. And that was a really interesting moment for me, and a defining moment for me on my spiritual journey, because I realized, and this is getting to the crux of what I've titled this video, is that I realized who I was. I remembered what I loved, what I dreamed to create, and I connected with that dreaming to the point where it became a priority, that I would only invest in people that shared those common values. That's, you could enter into that really deep and enriching conversation where you're each focusing on each other's higher selves, and the spiritual energy has just amplified it, and you're like, it's just so incredible and amazing. And I stopped pretending that I could do surface layer stuff, or stopped pretending that I was interested in things that I wasn't. And I began to find my voice. And so what I want to share with you is it is really, really important to create the moments, to create the space, to drop in and listen to what you yearn for, what your desires are, what you really wish that you could experience in your lifetime, and create that map. Create that map of yourself, of what actually fills your cup up. What do you enjoy? How do you enjoy experiencing your senses? What inspires your creativity? What inspires your humor, and for you to embody that playful energy? What inspires depth and meaning and passion? Because when we create these maps, we can align. And when you connect with who you are truly and give yourself permission to sit with that, and you feel that resounding depth and peace and just this, yes, like that's who I am in your body, then you can align everything else to that, which is any opportunities that come in, relationships, creativity, projects, you know, how you choose to show up in the world. So it's really, really important. But what I found in that is that the reason why we need to anchor to our true north is because of the power of the group. So it's first claiming that sovereignty, knowing who you are, knowing your soul's calling, your purpose, your truth, your magic, your wisdom, your beauty, your creativity in your authentic expression, and sitting with that and coming to peace and acceptance with who you are at that core essence. If we do not have those solid foundations, if you do not have those solid foundations, what you'll find is we can get swept away in magnetic north, which is the power of the group. And that's where I was relating this in my live stream from my Bloom program this evening, is the power of the group. And the group narrative is that it can be so alluring and magnetic and pull you into it, that it can be so enticing that we can forget who we are because this is really cool and I'm doing this now, and the energy of the group is fun and dynamic. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's like political activism or creativity or sensuality, like whatever it is, we can be seeking, and then we jump on one bandwagon to the next, and find the next hip, cool thing, because we haven't found our center and our truth and our core essence. And I really want to share that with you, because sometimes you will find that you will journey with people that are incredibly magnetic, which is beautiful, and they're attracting you in some way. But this is where discernment comes in. Yeah, total discernment is when you check in with yourself and come into alignment with who you are, where you're going, the life that you're dreaming for yourself and creating for yourself. How you choose to be in the world, how you speak, how you show up, how you share your gifts of the world, how you share your beauty and your magic. If journeying with these people in relationship, doesn't matter what type of relationship, is not in complete alignment with that, then you've really got to look to see if it's worth your energy and your investment, and to be really discerning of who you choose to journey with. Yeah. But then it also comes to, sometimes we find that that's also part of the journey too, is like getting swept away and finding ourselves off center. And if that happens and you find yourself in that area that perhaps you've, you know, maybe slipped a little bit with integrity, or making conscious decisions and choices for where you're going, and perhaps, you know, going to sleep at the wheel, I suppose. And then you find yourself out in the bush, like you've just, you know, taken the scenic route. Sometimes that serves a purpose as well, and that it's okay. You know, the whole point in your journey and even spirituality is about being real and being honest with yourself, who you are, what you want. And that the more you check in with yourself and listen deeply and connect with your body wisdom, the easier it is to come back into alignment. And the reality is that this day and age, we have so much sensory information. It's like everybody's trying to grab for your attention. Yeah, come here. I've got something to say. It's like this message as well. It's like, whoa, there's information here, and you get to be discerning on where you choose to invest your energy and what you choose to listen to and what you choose to expose yourself to. Because the reality is that you get to decide how to be you, and you get to decide the life that you want to live and how you want to create it. And that's why I really want to share with you that it's super, super important to come into full alignment with your true north and anchoring to that soul compass. And I really love that analogy. And if you do a little bit of research on compasses as well, is that a compass will align to the Earth's magnetic field, which is beautiful because it's anchoring us to nature. Here, we're in this reality for a reason, right? But then when you have new compasses, you actually have to program them and switch the dial to create the true north. Otherwise, you'll be anchored to the magnetic north. So if you want to go more into the science of it, go and research that, chuck it into Google, because it's quite fascinating. And that's why I really like to use that analogy, because your true north is in essence, who you are at soul level beyond all the bullshit stories. Yeah. And ultimately, that's what I love to teach as well, is kind of getting rid of all of the stuff that's not yours, all of these beliefs, narrative, imprints, stories that you've been shown, that you've been told, that someone's programmed, projected onto you. Perhaps you've absorbed from the television or movies. And, you know, we're constantly creating language to form reality around. And that's where it's, particularly in this day and age with this technocratic society that we live in, it's really, really imperative to become completely aligned and anchored to yourself as a sovereign being, aligned with your true north, so that then when you walk through life, you can be unwavering in your truth and your conviction, completely aligned to your morals and values. And when you show up in that way, we create epic things in the world. We create goodness. We can show up with complete kindness and compassion, and we're not shaken by the emotional turbulence that can be happening around us, because we're rock solid in who we are. We know who we are, yeah? And that is a process. It is a process of sitting with yourself, getting comfortable, enjoying your own company, allowing yourself to experience that solo time. And I know for a lot of people, that can be really, really scary. It's really, really scary to sit with your own thoughts and your own feelings and your own emotions, yeah? But ultimately, you're like the most beautiful person that you can be journeying with. So, you know, what awesome companionship when you can find that peaceful center and stillness within, and begin to enjoy your company and begin to enjoy your imagination as well. And that way, when we do create relationships, it's coming from an authentic place, that we know that if we're sharing our time and our energy with people, it's because we consciously choose to do it, because we love to, and we love to engage in that way. And I am all for creating those standards. I would much rather journey beside someone, friend or intimate partner, that is there 100% and present with me because they choose to be, rather than someone kind of tapping their foot, not really wanting to be around me, but not feeling like that they can do something else, you know, because they feel obligated or have this moral duty to be considerate or anything like that. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you this evening. I hope that, yeah, that's provided a little bit of insight for you. I kind of got this message that I need to share more of my stories, and it's one of those things. I've heard that it's a bit of a Scorpio trait as well, that we have a lot of intense stories to tell, and I feel like I have lived lifetimes within my 32 years of this body, this experience. I definitely feel like an ancient soul, and that there's lots has happened in that short amount of time, and it's just incredible to be able to have these platforms to be able to share stories with that. So I also encourage you to share your stories too, and to share your insights, no matter how insignificant you feel that they might be. They're definitely going to be medicine for someone, and somebody needs to hear your message in the way that you speak it. So, so much love and many blessings to you. Enjoy this activated full moon energy. I know I'm like pretty wired and feeling like I'm closing off for the evening.